Not every housemaid comes to help. Some enter a family with a smile, but behind that smile is a mission of destruction. And sometimes the very gift you welcome into your home is the doorway through which the devil walks in. They thought they were hiring a helper. Instead, they welcomed their greatest enemy into their own home. And it all started with a single decision to employ a stranger they knew nothing about. The Olawale family had been struggling to cope after the sudden death of Grandma, who used to live with them. She had been the one helping with the children, keeping the home in order, and making life easier for Mrs. Olawale, who was a banker with long hours. Now everything was falling apart. The children were messy, the house was untidy, and her husband grew impatient. So when Mrs. Olawale spotted a young girl named Busy at the market one Saturday morning, carrying loads on her head and begging traders for small jobs, she felt a tug of sympathy. "Do you need work?" she asked. "Yes, ma," the girl answered with downcast eyes. "Anything. I can wash, cook, sweep." Without asking too many questions, Mrs. Olawale decided to bring Busy home. It seemed like fate the solution to her problems. At first, Busy was everything they wanted. She was efficient, quick to learn, and eager to please. The children adored her. Mr. Olawale even praised his wife for her good heart in picking the girl. But little by little, strange things began to happen. The youngest child, Dara, who had been bubbly and playful, became withdrawn and fearful. She said Busy told her stories at night, stories about ghosts that lived in the ceiling and spirits that ate children's toes. Whenever Busy washed clothes, items went missing: underwear, handkerchiefs, even Dara's school socks. And the family's once peaceful home grew heavy with tension. The parents argued more. The children cried easily. What no one noticed was that Busy kept a small leather pouch under her pillow. She never let it out of her sight. And every night, when the house was dark and silent, Busy would carefully remove a small charm from the pouch, place it in her hands, and begin to chant softly, "Let there be confusion, confusion, confusion." By morning, the once loving family would wake up and start having unnecessary quarrels over little things, arguments that made no sense, disagreements that grew into bitterness. When she was done, she would quietly return the charm to the pouch, lay down, and sleep as though nothing had happened. The following week, Mr. Olawale's car broke down mysteriously in the middle of the highway. The engine simply refused to start, even though he had serviced it just the previous month. Mechanics tried their best, but nothing worked until he spent nearly 500,000 naira on repairs. The incident left him bitter and suspicious. The very next day, Mrs. Olawale opened her office drawer to retrieve an envelope of cash she had carefully set aside for supplies. To her horror, the money had vanished, every last note. She was sure she had locked the drawer. She sat at her desk, trembling. At home, she accused her husband of carelessness, while he fired back, blaming her disorganization. The once loving couple, who used to laugh and share everything, now threw harsh words at each other almost daily. Busy, however, remained calm and unusually helpful. Whenever quarrels arose, she stood silently, sometimes smirking when no one was watching. Unbeknownst to the family, she had started a new routine. Whenever she cooked stew or soup, she would squat quietly by the pot, urinate inside it, stir gently, and cover it back. At mealtime, she served the food with a smile. The family ate heartily, never suspecting anything. Hours later, the children would begin vomiting, clutching their stomachs, while Mr. and Mrs. Olawale ran to the toilet with severe purging. And who came rushing with water, wipes, and feigned concern? Busy. She pretended to be the most caring helper, patting backs, cleaning vomit, fetching hot water, yet she was the hidden cause of their suffering. Sickness, quarrels, and financial losses began to eat deep into the Olawale's home. Nights that once held peace now throbbed with tension. Arguments turned into silence. Silence turned into distance. Eventually, Mr. and Mrs. Olawale began sleeping in different rooms, each blaming the other for their problems. And that was when Busy struck. Mr. Olawale, already frustrated and lonely, began to notice the way Busy looked at him. She lingered when serving his food, smiling softly, her eyes holding his longer than necessary. Sometimes, when she bent to clear the table, her wrapper loosened just slightly, revealing what no maid should dare to show her master. At first he brushed it aside, but temptation grew stronger. Unknown to him, Busy had been charming his meals with her rituals, whispering over his plate before serving, "Let his wise be blind to his wife. Let his heart burn for me." One humid night, when the house was quiet and the children asleep, Busy slipped into his room. She placed a small charm under his pillow and whispered his name. Half asleep, dazed and powerless, he followed her into her quarters. That night she had him. And it did not stop there. It became routine. Almost every night, Mr. Olawale would sneak into Busy's room. By day, she was the humble maid. By night, she was his secret mistress, bound to him through charms and whispers. His wife noticed the change, the way he defended Busy, the way he ignored her complaints. The bond between husband and wife had completely fractured. One hot afternoon, while Mrs. Olawale was at work, a stranger knocked at the gate. He was a thin, weary-looking man with sunken eyes and a trembling voice. "I'm looking for Busy," he said. Mr. Olawale, surprised, called her out, but the moment she saw the man, Busy's face darkened. "I don't know him," she snapped quickly. "Send him away." The man shook his head slowly, his eyes filled with pity. "This girl is not who you think she is. She carries something that destroyed her last home. If you value your lives, send her back before it is too late." Mr. Olawale was startled, but Busy clung to his arm, tears in her eyes. "Don't listen to him, sir. He's just trying to spoil my name." Confused and torn between loyalty to his maid and the warning of a stranger, Mr. Olawale shut the gate on the man, but his words echoed in the house like a curse. "She carries something that destroyed her last home." When the stranger finally left the gate, his words still echoing in the air, Busy quickly turned to Mr. Olawale. Her face was calm, but her voice carried a sharp edge. "Sir, please," she said softly, holding his hand. "Don't tell Madame about this man. She will misunderstand. She will accuse me unjustly. Let this be between us." And in his dazed loyalty, Mr. Olawale nodded. "I won't tell her." From that moment, a dangerous secret sealed them together. At first, Busy continued her charms quietly, keeping Mr. Olawale under her spell. But soon her obsession grew. She became possessive. One night, as they lay together in her room, she whispered into his ear, "If you ever go back to your wife's bed, I will destroy you. Your life now belongs to me." Her words were not mere threats, she meant them. To enforce her power, she intensified her rituals. She mixed charms into his meals, buried strange objects under his mattress, and every night before sleeping, she whispered, "Forget her. Desire only me." But Busy's jealousy had another target, Mrs. Olawale. One morning, Madame woke up with painful red rashes spreading across her arms and legs. At night, her body itched and burned as though fire crawled beneath her skin. Worse still, sleep abandoned her. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt a presence pressing her chest, choking her breath. The once strong woman began to waste away. When it became unbearable, Mrs. Olawale turned to prayer. She began fasting secretly, rising at midnight to cry out to God for help. She didn't yet know the full source of her affliction, but she felt a darkness hanging in her home. One particular night, weak and trembling from hunger, she fell into a trance like sleep on the living room floor. In her vision, she saw her late mother-in-law Grandma standing at the foot of the staircase. Grandma's eyes burned with warning. "Wake up, my daughter," she said. "The girl you brought into this house is poisoning your food and tying your husband with charms. She is the reason sickness and strife have entered this home. Rise and fight, or you will lose everything." Mr. Solowal jolted awake, drenched in sweat. From that night, her fasting intensified. She prayed louder, longer, and with fiery determination. She knew now she was in a battle for her family's soul. Under BC's influence, Mr. Olawale was no longer the man his family once knew. He began drinking heavily, bottles of alcohol hidden in his office drawers and bedroom. He neglected his work, barely visiting his construction sites. When his children came close, he shouted at them with anger in his eyes, anger that did not belong to him. It was clear his life was no longer his own. He was tied to the charms of the housemaid. One Saturday afternoon, Mrs. Olawale found them in the kitchen. Bissy was stirring stew while humming one of her strange songs, and Mr. Olawale was seated beside her, gazing at her with a foolish smile. Something rose within Madam that day. She lifted her voice and began to pray out loud, "In the name of Jesus, every power of darkness in my home, I cast you out. This house is not your dwelling." The atmosphere shifted. The kitchen grew hot, as though fire had been lit in every corner. Busy screamed, covering her ears. Unable to withstand the prayers, she dropped the spoon and ran out of the house barefoot. But instead of being delivered, Mr. Olawale staggered after her, his face wild, shouting, "My love, wait for me." "Don't leave me here, I'm yours." Mrs. Olawale fell to her knees in the kitchen, tears running down her cheeks. "Father, you said if I call on you, you will answer. Save my husband. Don't let him die in sin. Return him safely to me." But Busy had no plans of letting go. She lured Mr. Olawale into a nearby guest house. With two of his ATM cards tucked safely in his wallet, they began living there together like husband and wife. Night after night, she used her charms to bind him tighter. By day, she dragged him to boutiques and salons, buying new clothes, expensive wigs, flashy bags, and shoes, things she never dreamed of affording. Whenever the hotel manager saw them, he shook his head. "Big man like this wasting away because of one small girl," he murmured. But Mr. Ola no longer had control of his will. One evening, after they returned from shopping, Busy stood before him in a new dress and declared, "You must marry me officially. Forget that woman in your house. Send her away so we can return to your big mansion together. If you refuse, your life will never prosper again." Dazed and enslaved, Mr. Olawale nodded slowly. "I agree. You are my future." But God had other plans. Even as BC tightened her grip, prayers were rising from Mrs. Olawale's lips day and night, creating cracks in the spiritual chains holding her husband. Not long after Busy's demand for marriage, Mr. Olawale suddenly fell gravely ill in the guest house. He could not walk properly. His skin grew pale, his lips trembled, and sweat poured down his face. Panicked, Busy began calling doctors to attend to him inside the luxury room. One after another, they came with their medical kits, ran their tests, and all gave the same response. There's nothing medically wrong with him. His heartbeat is normal. His blood pressure is fine, but something unseen is holding him down. And each time, Busy pressed the same solution. The only cure is for him to marry me quickly. The doctors looked at each other in shock. One muttered under his breath, "This is not normal." They shook their heads and left, one after the other. The manager of the guest house had been observing everything silently. He saw how the once strong man had wasted away in a matter of weeks, and how this strange maid paraded like a queen. Suspicion gnawed at him, so he did some quiet investigations and eventually discovered Mrs. Olawale's phone number. Late one evening, he called her anonymously, "Madam, if you love your husband, come to Olusho Guest House along Konji Road. Carry your husband quickly. This small girl will finish him, hero. He will die here if you don't act fast." Mrs. Olawal's heart raced. "Who is this? Please, who's speaking?" But the man dropped the call. Without wasting time, Mrs. Olawal drove straight to the police station. With urgency in her voice, she pleaded for help. 2 officers followed her immediately. When they arrived at the guest house, the manager was waiting at the reception. He whispered quickly, "Room 207, second floor. Please hurry." He handed them the spare key. The officers stormed the room. Busy froze, caught off guard. They grabbed her and dragged her into the police van. She kicked and screamed, but there was no escape. Mr. Olawal lay weak on the bed, barely conscious. The officers helped him downstairs, but Mrs. Olawal insisted on taking her husband straight to church. By divine providence, it was midweek service. Members were still praying when they carried Mr. Olawal into the sanctuary. The moment the congregation saw him, they surrounded him with fervent prayers. They prayed in tongues, they cried to God. They broke every chain of darkness that held him captive. Suddenly his body jerked violently, his mouth opened, and he began to vomit strange substances. Moments later, his eyes cleared. His voice broke as he whispered, "My love, what happened? What's going on?" Tears flooded Mrs. Olawal's face. She hugged him tightly. "You're free. God has saved you." Later that evening, she explained everything to him: the charms, the seduction, the curse, and the prayers. Mr. Olawal was shocked and broken. He fell on his knees and apologized deeply to his wife. Together, they promised to live prayerfully and carefully, never again to trust strangers blindly. But as for the wicked maid, busy her story did not end in that police van. By morning, when officers checked, she had vanished from the cell without a trace. No one knew how. No one saw her leave. Till today, she is still out there, roaming, looking for another unsuspecting family to destroy. Be careful who you bring into your home. Not every smiling face means well. Some helpers come to serve, but others come with hidden missions to scatter, seduce, and destroy. Discernment is key. Not everyone who begs for help is meant to live under your roof. Pray before hiring anyone as a housemaid or houseboy. The devil hides in small gifts. Be wary of charms, trinkets, or items given without explanation. Evil often disguises itself as harmless. Marriage is sacred. Couples must protect their bond. When division enters, the enemy takes advantage. Parents must stay spiritually alert. Children often sense evil before adults do. Listen when they complain of strange dreams or fears. Prayer is powerful. It was prayer and fasting that broke the chains on Mr. Olawal, not human wisdom. Wealth and beauty can blind. Mr. Olawal's fall began when he admired Bissi's beauty instead of rebuking her advances. Evil never rests. The fact that Busy vanished shows that wickedness does not die easily. One must remain watchful. Unity saves families. Division gave Busy room to operate. If couples stay united, no charm can stand against them. Who are you letting into your inner circle, your home, your business, your marriage? Are you spiritually awake, or are you too busy to notice the silent destruction around you? Remember, the enemy doesn't always come with horns and fire. Sometimes it comes in the form of a smiling maid, a kind helper, or a harmless gift. Stay prayerful, stay watchful, and never forget evil always looks for the careless. Thank you so much for watching and for always sticking with us here at Delia Story Time. We truly appreciate your love and support. We promise to keep bringing you more exciting and meaningful stories that will both entertain and teach valuable lessons. Please don't keep this story to yourself. Share it with friends and family so more people can learn from it. If you enjoyed today's story, don't forget to like this video. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe now so you won't miss our next story. A brand new story is coming very soon. Stay tuned.